From the moment we are born, we are wired to rely on others for safety. Kind of have this shared trust. If I drop my kids off at school, right, that they're going to be safe and that the teachers are going to be safe. It's that kind of trust that is being eroded every single day. We need that shared trust. When trust is broken, something inside us fractures inside, it shrinks, we pull back. Here's the good news, and I want you to hear me say this. Trust can be nurtured. It can be grown. And it's our job to keep our hearts open. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. October 10th is World Mental Health Day, and this year we're saying thank you to therapists. BetterHelp therapists have helped over 5 million people worldwide take a step forward through brave questions, a safe space to cry, or a small win that changes everything. If something's keeping you up at night, talking to someone can help. For me, one simple question from a therapist can help me completely transform how I approach a problem or a situation. And that clarity changes how I show up for myself and the people I love. With BetterHelp, that's H-E-L-P, you can get guidance from a fully licensed therapist online. They'll do the initial matching for you using a short questionnaire, drawing on 12 years of experience and a strong match rate. And if you don't feel well suited with your first match, you can switch anytime. This World Mental Health Day, we're celebrating the therapists who've helped millions of people take a step forward. If you're ready to find the right therapist for you, BetterHelp can help you start that journey. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/bestofyou. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/bestofyou. Hey everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of The Best of You. Today we're diving into a topic so many of us are struggling with right now. It's trust. To be honest, I felt pretty disoriented lately, especially when it comes to our national and global culture. I don't always know who to believe in the news. I don't always know who to trust from the pulpit, in politics, especially not on social media. I do know who my safe, trusted people are in my real embodied life. But if I keep my eyes too long on that larger world outside of my own local sphere, it can feel really disorienting and overwhelming. And I hear this from a lot of people that I talk to. We're living in a time where this broader sense of trust is unraveling. And it makes us question, sometimes it makes us question ourselves. What or who can I really trust? It ripples down from the global environment into our own souls. And I think that's a little bit of what we're seeing happen with these polarizations in our larger community, because we don't have that sense of shared trust, of common humanity. And so it forces us sometimes, or it prompts us, I should say, sometimes to build up walls in our own souls, maybe inadvertently, right? We want to pull in. I don't trust anybody. I don't trust anybody except for maybe a couple of people and God. Or on the other hand, sometimes we outsource our trust. We feel disoriented. We don't know who to trust. So we latch on to a tribe, right? Like a group of people or a speaker or one person. We say, I'll just go all in with this person. It's safer to go in with this group, right? We sort of outsource our trust to a larger group because it's just easier. It's just too scary. We don't know where we fit. We don't know who to trust. We kind of lose our own discernment. And neither of those extremes is healthy. It's not healthy to sort of pull in and just stop trusting altogether, but it's also not healthy to sort of put your allegiance in with one person or one community and one group and trust them blindly and not have discernment that starts inwardly, right? That starts in your own soul. I want to start with a working definition of trust. Trust isn't just a belief. It's a felt knowing. It's in your body. It's embodied. It's the confidence that someone or something is reliable, good, and safe enough to lean on. That their words and their actions will align for the most part. Nobody's perfect, but consistently over time. When you trust someone, you place something of value in their hands. might be your ideas, it might be your work, it might be your vulnerabilities, it might be some family member, it might be your children, but you believe that they will honor and value what's precious. Here's what I think most people don't understand about trust. It's not static. It's not a one-time transaction. It's dynamic. It's relational. It's always evolving. Trust can be broken. It can also be rebuilt. And it's always earned over time. So I want to give you a picture. For those of you watching, I have this heart figurine that a friend gave to me in my hands. It's breakable. It's fragile. And let's say it represents my soul, right? Everything precious inside of me. Trust isn't about handing this soul, this literal heart to someone and walking away and assuming it's a one and done kind of thing, right? Here, you've got my heart. It's yours. Take good care of it. That's not exactly what trust is. Instead, imagine you hold something precious. You hold your soul, you hold your heart in your hand. You learn to hold it a little more loosely. Over time, you might start to show more of yourself to someone else. Over time, you recognize this is someone who will help me hold it, right? Their hands come underneath yours. There's a shared holding. Over time, as someone proves steady, you might relax your grip a little bit. You might even let them hold more of your heart, right? At the same time, you're also holding their heart. On a larger scale, more people might come in. There might be many hands holding your heart, and you're holding many other people's hearts too, right? It's a shared holding. We don't give trust away. We share it. We hold it together with other people. On a larger scale, trust works this way in our communities. Social scientists call this kind of shared holding the glue of society. Without it, our families fracture and our communities kind of fall apart. Rachel Botsman, she's a researcher on trust. She calls this a confident relationship with the unknown. And I think about this every time I call an Uber. Like I kind of have this shared trust that I'm going to get into this Uber and I'm going to be safe and my Uber driver's going to be safe. Or if I drop my kids off at school, right, that they're going to be safe and that the teachers are going to be safe. Or if I send an email to a colleague, that colleague is going to hold what I've shared with honor and with respect. That's a shared trust in our communities. And it's that kind of trust that is being eroded every single day. We need that shared trust. And it doesn't mean that everybody has to believe the exact same things we believe, but we need that shared trust as the fabric of our societies. Scripture places trust at the very center of life. Over and over, we hear in the Bible, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding, right? That's that shared trust. Trust in the Lord. The Lord's hands are so big to hold your heart with you. Trust begins with God, the one who is always steady when everything else shifts. But here's the thing, guys, the Bible doesn't stop there. Trust isn't only vertical. It's also woven horizontally. Paul writes that love always trusts. Loving communities hold hearts together. Throughout Scripture, God's people learn trust not only through their prayers vertically, but also through the ways they lean on one another. Israel in the wilderness, the church in Acts, right? The households that Paul greets by name in his letters. There's a shared trust between Paul and those communities. Trust is always personal and communal. In other words, you can't compartmentalize trust. You can't say, I'll trust God, but I won't trust other people. It's not how trust works. Or I'll trust these people who all believe the same way I do, but not these other people who I share a community with. It's not how trust works. Trust has to be shared in our friendships, in our churches, in our neighborhoods. And where this idea of shared trust is practiced, right? This is where it's practiced. In these places, it gets broken, it gets wounded, and it can also get repaired. This is why broken trust cuts so deep. It's not just disappointment, right? It strikes at the core of what we're made for. We are made to live in this sort of shared trust. Trust isn't a luxury. It's a core human need. From the moment we are born, we are wired to rely on others for safety and nourishment. When trust is broken, a betrayal by a friend, a leader misusing power, a loved one letting us down, something inside us fractures inside. It shrinks. We pull back. We pull that heart in. It's understandable. We might pull our heart in, or our nervous system might kick into hypervigilance. Our stomach can turn into knots. We might have a hard time sleeping. Our hearts start to race. We want to go into protection mode, right? We grip tighter. We want to control everything. Sometimes we want to withdraw. We want to just hide our hearts, our souls out of sight so no one can hurt us. Sometimes we just numb, right? We inject our hearts with whatever it is that will take away the fear and the pain and the anxiety of broken trust. I've noticed these tendencies in myself. Sometimes I've wanted to just tuck my heart completely away. If no one can see it, no one can break it. That's been my motto at different times in my life. It also happens spiritually. Distrust can make us really cynical. It can make us subtly apathetic toward God. Or we might grip tighter to religious certainty, to the leaven of legalism, judgment, and criticism of others. That's actually coming from cynicism, by the way. Or we might withdraw slowly, stop practicing our faith, and just slip away because we just don't trust God anymore. And the problem is that while distrust might feel safer in the short term, it always is costly in the long term. It keeps us from God. It keeps us from others. It keeps us from the joy and the goodness and the beauty that God designed our souls for and that our world so desperately needs from us. So if trust is feeling hard for you right now, I want you to hear me say this. You are not failing. It's not weakness, but it is a signal that I want you to pay attention to. Whether you're tempted to sort of cling to certainty or whether you are tempted to just kind of give up altogether, please hear me say there is another way forward. The older I get, the more I want to live intentionally, from how I spend my time to how I nourish my body. That's why I love Mosh bars. You might have seen Mosh on Shark Tank. It was founded by Maria Shriver and her son, Patrick Schwarzenegger, to spark a conversation about brain health through food, education, and research. Mosh joined forces with leading scientists and functional nutritionists to go beyond the average protein bar. Each Mosh bar includes brain-supporting ingredients like ashwagandha, lion's mane, collagen, and omega-3s, plus a game-changing ingredient you won't find anywhere else. Cognizin, a premium nootropic that supplies the brain with a patented form of acetylcholine. And the taste is amazing. My personal favorite right now is the chocolate chip cookie bar, but there are 9 flavors, including 3 new plant-based options, so there's something for everyone. If you'd like to give back while fueling your body and your brain, Mosh bars are the perfect choice. Head to moshlife.com/bestofyou to save 20% plus free shipping on either the bestsellers trial pack or the new plant-based trial pack. That's moshlife.com/bestofyou with code Best of You. Thank you, Mosh, for sponsoring this episode. Here's the tension. We can't afford to trust blindly. We don't want to be naive. That wouldn't be wise. But we also can't afford to live without trust. So what do? Well, for me, when I started noticing this disorientation in my soul, I started to just ask myself a simple question. Where does trust come easy in my life? Like, where do I almost not even have to think about it? I just trust, my husband, my kids. There's just some people in my life that are bedrock. There's just a sturdy foundation of trust. And then I started noticing where in my life does trust come hard? I just find myself getting cynical. I find myself getting disoriented. I'm like, I don't know what to trust. Oftentimes for me, that's when I'm online. It's with social media, sometimes the news, sometimes the larger political landscape. That's just where I can get sort of tempted to get cynical. And so once I started to notice that, it was just helpful to me because it gives me a simple and quick way to go, I'm going to move toward the things and the people I do trust when I notice that cynicism, right? That's when it's time to turn off the news or turn off social media or not listen to podcasts for a while and just really focus on my embodied life, my neighborhood, my closest circle of friends, the work that I do, this work that I do, these embodied, tangible places that feel more real, more grounded, more trustworthy. So often for me, that's my local neighborhood. That's my local environment where I can be a part of change, even when there has been broken trust, but I can also kind of know in an embodied way where trust really lives. It also means doubling down on trying to be trustworthy myself, right? I want what I bring into the world to be trustworthy as best that I can. I'm not perfect at it, but to try to be true, to try to be authentic, to try to be someone whose actions align with what I think. And when I focus my attention on how I can become a more trustworthy person, it helps me kind of counterbalance or counteract that cynicism, right? Because I'm not focusing on trusting out there. I'm like, how do I become a more trustworthy person? So that's a little bit of what I've been trying to do, move toward what feels trustworthy and try to become a more trustworthy person myself. I want to leave you with 3 practical steps you can take, and they're based on the Name It, Frame It, Brave It model from my work in my book, I Shouldn't Feel This Way. You might think of it in that context. Maybe you're telling yourself, I shouldn't feel so cynical. I shouldn't feel like I can't trust anyone. I shouldn't feel like I'm struggling to trust God, right? Just start there with the naming. With compassion, don't beat yourself up, but just noticing. I notice that I'm getting kind of cynical. I'm getting kind of untrusting of anyone around me. Start there. For some of you, naming it might mean naming that you're trusting too quickly or too easily. That maybe for you, you take that heart, whatever object it is that represents your soul, and you give it away too fast, and you wind up getting hurt. And part of your naming is, I think I'm too quick to outsource my trust, and maybe for me, I'm not really doing my part of co-carrying, right? Co-carrying the weight. And I need to figure out how to do that, right? Maybe that's how you're naming where you are on this trust journey. Secondly, I want you to move into framing, right? Framing, whatever it is that you notice. Framing is the work of discerning with God, getting curious about what this is about for you. And when you're framing a relationship with trust, you might ask yourself, similar to what I was asking myself, things like, where does trust come easy for me right now? What people do I trust fairly easy? I know they're going to be there for me. Where does trust feel really hard? Where are those places where I'm just like, not going to trust that person, right? Just, again, notice that and just ask yourself what that's about. Is there validity to that, right? Maybe there's wisdom in that. And so it's not that you're being distrustful, it's that you're being wise, right? I'm not trusting there for a reason. Now, if you notice that, acknowledge that with God. God, I don't think those are trustworthy places, so I need to filter them out. This is what boundaries work is about, right? But it's not because you're cynical. Cynicism comes when we kind of keep trusting people and they continue to betray us, right? But healthy trust comes when we go, I don't actually think that's a trustworthy person or a trustworthy place. And so I'm going to remove myself from it. I'm going to protect my heart from that place or that person in a healthy way, because then I move toward the people I do trust, right? I'm not going to hide or withdraw or numb. I'm going to share my heart and my soul with people who have proven trustworthy. That's healthy trust. That's not cynicism, but that requires a process of discernment, right? Am I withholding and withdrawing and retreating, but not really moving toward healthy trust? That's the work of framing, is really taking an inventory of the people and places you do trust, move toward them with intention, right? And noticing where you don't feel trust, where you're not sure, where you've been hurt repeatedly, and setting healthy boundaries in a healthy way, releasing those folks, not giving them access to your soul or to your heart, not because you hate them, not because you're angry with them, but because you've acknowledged through wisdom, that's not a healthy place for me. You're giving yourself the gift of agency when you do that. You're building trust with yourself, with God, and you're moving toward healthy co-sharing of trust. If you struggle with nausea, Relief Band can be a game changer. Relief Band is the original anti-nausea wristband that quickly relieves and prevents nausea and vomiting associated with motion sickness, anxiety, migraines, hangovers, morning sickness, chemotherapy, and more. It's a band you wear on your wrist, and you can adjust the intensity depending on how you feel. It's 100% drug-free, non-drowsy, works quickly before or after symptoms start, and has 0 side effects. The new Relief Band Premier Plus model provides advanced nausea relief, includes a digital clock, and uses smart, skin-sensing technology to preserve battery life. Relief Band isn't magic, it's science. It's FDA approved, clinically proven, and recommended by doctors nationwide. So if you want to cure your nausea problem fast, join the hundreds of thousands of people who are nausea-free with Relief Band. Right now, we've got an exclusive offer just for the Best of You listeners. If you go to reliefband.com and use promo code BESTOFYOU, you'll receive 20% off plus free shipping. So head to reliefband.com and use our promo code BESTOFYOU for 20% off plus free shipping. And then finally, we get into the braving step. And this is especially for those of you who feel like your heart's been shattered. You just feel like, I can't trust anyone. I'm barely hanging on, trusting God, let alone another human, right? My heart just feels so shattered. I just kind of want to hold it so tight so no one ever hurts me again, right? For those of you who feel that way, and I get it, and there's no shame in it, the braving step is all about what I call micro steps. Not big, bold gestures. Don't give that heart away, but micro steps of trust. And those very simply might just look like letting someone carry a very small task for you. You know, it's almost like testing, not to put someone on trial, but just to test. Just, I'm just going to see if that person, if I ask them to do something, or if I invite them to something and it's tiny, there's a little bit of risk, not very much, see what happens. They seem trustworthy. I don't know. I'm scared to trust anybody, but I'm going to take a micro step toward trust. Or maybe you share one semi-vulnerable truth about yourself. You just take a small risk. I'm going to share with this friend a real thought that I have. I haven't been really vulnerable for a long time. You might even label it for that person. Listen, this is hard for me, but I want to tell you something I've been thinking about, and here's what it is. And then you notice, how do they respond? Do they hold your heart well or not? And if they don't, you don't have to share that trust with them again, right? You can pull back, and then you can take a micro step in a different direction. Maybe trust for you is giving yourself permission to try something new, like I'm doing with this video, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to put myself out there. This is hard. Maybe it'll be a big flop, right? I'll be okay, right? But I'm going to put myself out there and take a step and see what happens. See who ends up holding this space with me, right? Giving yourself permission to take a risk, right? And don't go so far with something that's going to shatter you again, but a small calculated risk that you go, even if this doesn't go well, I'm going to be okay, right? But I'm going to try something because I do want to grow. I want to grow more hands around this heart of mine, whether it's my work, whether it's my heart, whether it's my beliefs, right? I want to see if there are more people who can hold it, right? That's what we do when we take brave steps. Trust is not all or nothing. It's not. It starts with these small openings, these micro steps, these tiny steps of a little bit of vulnerability that over time build strength. You start to see who's trustworthy with your heart and with your soul and with your mind. I want to just close here with a word about digital trust, because so much of our world is digital and we do have to figure out who to trust out in the digital space. Here's the thing that's true. Our brains and our nervous systems are wired for embodied cues, right? Trust grows in repeated interactions and shared environments. And that's really hard to replicate online. It's really hard to replicate digitally, where there's no real feedback loop, right? That intimacy can feel real, but it's one-sided. Typically, we don't know how that person would respond to us in real life. And so it can be tricky to discern trustworthiness online. There's a couple of things you can look for. I think it's not impossible, right? There are things we can look for to develop a sense of who we trust and who we don't. One of the ones that I think about is who's this person accountable to, right? What systems and what checks and balances do they place on themselves, right? Do they admit when they're wrong? Are they consistent over time? Do they honor shared wisdom? Do they turn to scripture? Do they look to science? Do they look to other experts, to community? Or do they set themselves up as the only authority, right? How do they treat the most vulnerable? The widow, the orphan, the poor. How do they speak about people who are vulnerable? Even if they have differing opinions about how our governments should treat folks, what's their posture toward those who are hurting the most? I think that's an important measure of trustworthiness. But just to be discerning. People, it's so important for us to be discerning about who we expose, even in the digital world, our hearts, our minds, and our souls to. We are living in tough times when it comes to trust. We just are. But I will say this, the fact that we feel that actually is a good sign. It means that it matters. It means that our souls are intact, right? The fact that our souls feel fractured, the fact that our souls are longing for something more beautiful, more good, a co-sharing, right? The fact that our souls want places of work, schools, universities, institutions where we can trust that for the most part, we'll get each other's backs as human beings. The fact that we long for that and the fact that we're feeling a little disoriented and shattered right now is a real good sign of health, to be honest. So take heart in that sense. If you're feeling some of that cynicism or some of that fragility, don't let it become cynicism, but it is a sign of a soul that's intact. We were designed to live in community with other people who care for us and for whom we care. That's part of God's design for our souls. Here's the good news, and I want you to hear me say this. Trust can be nurtured. It can be grown. And it's our job to keep our hearts open, not blindly, not naively, but open to trust. And here's what I want you to consider this week. I love this for you, and I'm excited. I'm going to do it with you. I want you to find an object of your own that represents your own heart, just like this one I'm holding here. It can be anything. And I want you to reflect on it this week prayerfully and ask yourself, who is holding your heart represented by this object? Who's holding it with you right now? What people or communities have shown themselves steady and trustworthy in your life? Just notice that with gratitude and give thanks for those people. And also notice, where do you notice distrust rising up, where you're tempted to tuck your heart away, to hold it back, to withdraw, and maybe even grow cynical. And I want you to also notice that and name that and talk to God about that. And then I want you to ask yourself, what's one small step you can take this week toward building trust? Maybe it's leaning into a relationship that has proven to be safe. Maybe it's creating distance or setting a boundary where there hasn't been safety, right? To prove to yourself and to God that you are trustworthy with your own heart. Maybe it's taking a break from social media. Maybe it's taking a break from the news to protect your heart and then moving toward someone in your real life to have those conversations with instead of doing it online. My hope is that this space, whether you're listening or watching, can be one where your heart feels held, and that together we can keep growing in trust in God, in each other, and in the deepest parts of ourselves. Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Best of You. Be sure to check out the show notes for any resources and links mentioned in the show. You can find those on my website at dralisoncook.com. That's Alison with one L, cook.com. Before you forget, I hope you'll follow the show now so that you don't miss an episode. And I'd love it if you'd go ahead and leave a review. It helps so much to get the word out. I look forward to seeing you back here next Thursday. And remember, As you become the best of who you are, you honor God, you heal others, and you stay true to your God-given self.